Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I'm Lieutenant Justin Iwan. It's an honor to be here again. And yes, this is a secondary feedback to the initial presentation we gave on the 8th of September. So some of these slides that we're going to go over are repeat slides from the initial, but I think it's important to get that groundwork back and where our data is driving us with this program. So with our deployment assessment, we look at reviewing of the accident data, and that's prior, during, and after a site location. And again, just a reminder, there are 2 speed safety cameras that we utilize for this program. We also look at the speed data pre, during, and after a site selection for a completed cycle. Again, we use a covert box, which I'll get into more of that logistics, and obtaining the pre and the post speeds. Again, this program was derived to help reduce the number of vehicles speeding in our roadways for the long term and help curb and bring healthy driving behavior to the city of Avondale. So program effectiveness. We have the 3 locations up on the board here. These 3 locations are the locations that we use to cite our violators. So location 1 was Van Buren and 107th. Location 2 was on Dysart, which was Thomas and Indian School. And location 3 was Avondale Boulevard, and that was just north of Jefferson and just north of Maricopa Street. One of the points of feedback council wanted was how many citations from this program were generated to resident versus non-resident drivers. So again, we use a date range of August 1st, 2024 to July 31st of 2025. So our resident, non-resident citation issued totaled 12,127, which our resident received 2,174, and non-resident was 9,953 citations. And this just provides council with a visualization map of actually where those cameras are at and which direction you would have to be traveling. You'll see on here we have blue would denote the Van Buren 107th, yellow denotes Dysart, green is Avondale Boulevard, and you also see on here red, which on October 13th is where we deployed the speed safety cameras on McDowell Road at 109th and 112th Avenue. So we'll look more at program effectiveness. We're going to look at Dysart Road first. You'll see on here that we have pre, during, and then 2 posts. So initially when we have a site that we're going to utilize our speed safety camera, we'll put our covert box. A covert box is simply that. It's covert, so no one's alerted to any device capturing data. It's very small in size and is placed on a light pole to get the natural flow of traffic for our vehicles. And that is posted 1 week prior to the deployment of our speed safety cameras. And for post-deployment, we wait a week and we deploy it for our post-speed. Here you're going to see a 4th post-deployment speed, which we deployed that covert box on September 22nd to the 29th. We only looked at the average speeds that were above 11 miles an hour. So Dysart Road is 45 miles an hour. So we only looked at speeds that were 56 miles an hour and above, which our average speeds were consistent with all 4 at 59 miles per hour. Now if we look down to that second block of data, we're going to look at the total number of vehicles and the total number of vehicles that were exceeding that 11 mile an hour range. So with our pre-deployment, we saw 60,000 vehicles, and 3,200 of those were exceeding that 11 mile an hour range. Our post-deployment, we saw 59,000 vehicles, and we did see a decrease in the number of vehicles that were speeding at 1,600, just shy of 1,700. And just frame of reference, that was May 6th to May 13th. Our post-deployment, again, was September 22nd to the 29th. We saw an increase of vehicles at 5% at 66,000, and we saw our number of vehicles jump back to that pre-deployment range at 3,100. Now we're going to look at Avondale Boulevard. Here, the speed limit is 45 miles per hour. Again, our pre, during, and post average speed remain the same at 59 miles per hour. If we look down to that second block, we'll see the data for both locations. For our pre-deployment number of vehicles, we saw 128,000 vehicles, and we saw 2,900 of those vehicles that were over the 11 mile an hour threshold. We did see a 22% increase at 157,000 vehicles that were traveling, and we did see a decrease about 37%. So that brought us about 1,800 vehicles that were over that 11 mile an hour range. And again, at the request of council, if need be, in 4 months, we would do the same thing that we did with Dysart Road, would be go back to see if there was any change in that long-term driving behavior. Another piece of information council asked for were the number of citations that were issued by our officers in the city of Avondale. And you'll see on here we do have a date range of October 1st of 2024 to September 30th of 2025, which is different than the date range that we used. The reason for that is our track system, which is our digital system for giving citations and warnings, didn't actually go live until the very beginning of September. So to be consistent, we wanted to give it a full year worth of data. So again, this was only for our officers writing citations and warnings at 28701A, which is our speeding citation. Our citations were 1,240. Our warnings were 979. So that averaged 185 citations and warnings per month. So we're going to look at budget implications. So this is our total anticipated cost for fiscal year 2026, with an average for our speed safety camera and associated expenses at $209,482, and personnel for 4 employees. Currently, we have the 2 that are full-time for courts and the PD. With council's approval, there'd be 2 additional employees, which brings that total up to $352,000, which is a total of $561,482. However, I do want to highlight that this does not include when we have a high number of captures on our camera. So as I alluded to earlier, that we moved the cameras onto McDowell Road, we saw a significant increase in the number of captures. And within that first week, we already had to outsource some of that workload from our single CSO that does all the work for this to other CSOs to help get through that queue. Again, this is a repeat. This is the court collections. The general fund brought in $391,000. Court enhancement fee was just under $40,000. Defensive driving school diversion fee was $287,000, and our court enhancement fee was just over $25,000, which brought us to a total of $743,665.19. I want to touch on some of our speed safety strategies that here at the police department we're committed to. We're committed to prioritizing filling our traffic officer vacancies. So currently we only have 3, and we have vacancies for 8. And the reason for some of those vacancies is that we have some of our officers that promoted to sergeant and moved over to other specialties. However, knowing that we had some vacancies, I want to come to a solution and how we can fill some of these vacancies. We just graduated 8 from our law enforcement academy that are entering into our field training program, which we can, when they complete and become solo capable, use those to fill some of these vacancies. We also have one of our officers that is in the final weeks of his field training program, and we have a lateral that is in the field training program. And 2 weeks ago, we just sent 10 of our recruits to the academy to become law enforcement officers at the end of their training. So we have some numbers coming in that would help fill some of these vacancies for our officers. And again, we only do have the one CSO that primarily handles these traffic safety queue reviews. Currently we have 5 speed trailers, and those speed trailers, which I'm sure you've all seen, are placed along the road. They give the digital readout of what your speed is along that road. They're usually deployed for a month at a time. But not only do they provide a digital reading of speed, it also captures data. And that data is daytime and number of vehicles and the number of speeders through a certain area. And with these speed trailers, we do see a decrease in speed by the end of them. However, I can't attest to if that speeding reverts back to normal pre-deployment speed, much like our speed safety cameras. We also do have 4 covert boxes, which I touched on earlier. And these covert boxes are used to get that natural flow of traffic on our roadway to ensure that we're deploying our resources appropriately. So that kind of leads us into our next bullet point, which is a target enforcement. So using the data that we're getting from our speed trailer and our covert boxes allows us to do target enforcement. So fully staffing our traffic bureau allows us to get our officers in strategic places at dates and times. It also allows us to spread our officers throughout the entire city of Avondale, getting more visibility of traffic officers on the roadway, and with the ultimate goal of decreasing the speeding on our roadway. We'd like to increase our LiDAR and radar units for our patrol officers. With the implementation of our take-home vehicles, prior to, we had 10 LiDAR units in our department, where an officer, when they come on shift, would have to check that out and utilize that for their shift and then check it in at the end of shift. But now with our take-home vehicle program, we're committed to purchasing more LiDAR units so that our officers have that tool readily available to them in their patrol vehicle. That way, when they're not responding to calls for service, they're able to touch on some of these saturation points that we'll have identified for them to help drive down the speeding issues in our city. Also, I'd like to touch on when a traffic stop is conducted by, whether that's a traffic officer and or an officer on the roadway, it does humanize that traffic stop. Not every single contact we've had with all of our citizens, as you saw before, results in a citation. Some of those changed behaviors result from just a simple warning that we give our officer or give our citizens of Avondale. So continue on with our speed safety strategies. We'd like to do a new speed safety campaign. We've done some of these in the past where we've done videos and some of our posts on our social media page. As you can see, we're very fortunate, as we saw yesterday with the raceway here, to do some of our slogans that actually cater to that. So as you see here, slow down, life is not a race, leave the driving to the professionals, are some of the slogans that I think we could easily use, which makes it very simple, and it's a catchy phrase for our citizens to jump on board with. We also would like to not just silo that simply to the PD, but then work with our partners in the city of Avondale and have a joint message that's pushed out to our Avondale residents. And I also understand that not every individual that drives on our roadway are going to be Avondale residents and or follow our social media pages. That's why I think utilizing our message boards with these simple, catchy phrases that leave the racing to the professionals, something that they're going to remind them that when they're traveling in the city of Avondale, that the speeding is not going to be acceptable, and just those unified messages. Our Traffic Bureau also participates in the West Valley Speed Enforcement Task Force, and these are held throughout the West Valley, where the host agency will identify areas of concern, and all agencies will conduct enforcement in those specific areas. Here in Avondale, we've had the pleasure of hosting a couple of these. We'd like to increase those number of hosting of these task force. That way we get a lot more officers in our city driving down that speed and just having a very big visibility of officer presence on our roadway. We'd also like to partner with our engineering, as Director Moon spoke earlier, on roadway design, which is designed to decrease speed and accidents. They currently have a grant, which is a Safe Streets and Roads for All. I know they field concerns from our citizens just as much as we field concerns from our citizens, but partnering with them to get into environmental designs on roadway to maybe make it feel like it's a little bit smaller to help naturally drive down that speeding on that roadway. And currently we do have traffic cameras at a good majority of our intersections, and these traffic camera allows us to tap in and look at live feed of the number of flow of traffic that we have going through our city, which also allows us to divert our officers in specific locations if we see an increase in traffic. We also have a flock camera system that we utilize and would like to continue to utilize and grow that program. The flock camera system is very important to us. When we get descriptions of vehicles, and maybe not a license plate, but a description of a vehicle, and we can utilize this system, which would allow us to figure out where this vehicle is traveling at dates and times, and hopefully make contact with them to advise them that whatever drive behavior they're conducting is not safe for our roadways, and just hold people responsible and make sure that we're being good partners and stewards with all the drivers on the roadway. So our recommendation is based on a review of data, including long-term effectiveness of our speed safety cameras, cost analysis, employee time commitment, and we did a debrief of this program. Our recommendation is termination of the contract with Vera Mobility. We would remove the speed safety cameras on December 31st, 2025, and cancellation of the program of Vera Mobility on June 30th of 2026. And the reason that we have some months gaps in between there is to allow for the PD queue and the courts queue to be cleared out before the cancellation of the program. And the cost of the cancellation of the program is $107,000. And myself and Chief Espinoza will be up here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. A lot of information, and definitely one that members of the community have I know, chatted with me on and shared their information and their opinions and thoughts on this program itself. So I will open the floor to comments from the rest of council. Okay, Councilmember Weiss.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Looking at the slides where you went back, number one, when we asked you for more data, you gave it. Thank you so much for coming back and giving us more data. One of the things that at the last council meeting that we discussed this, that kind of dawned on me at the end of the meeting, was the fact that we couldn't move the cameras because we hadn't made a change in driver behavior. And we couldn't do it until we got to like a 50% decrease, I think it was, in speeders. And the fact that we couldn't move it for so long, just to me, is also a data point. Looking back at Dysart Road and seeing that was not a sustained decrease, that it went back to the pre-deployment number of people who were speeding again, it kind of tells me that this probably is not it didn't do what we wanted it to do, which was to decrease speeders and to promote healthy driving. So I would support your motion. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Okay, Councilmember White.
Thank you so much, Ivan. I appreciate your presentation. Excellent information. You went above and beyond with the additional data points. So I wanted to thank you, Chief, and for also presenting that. I have quite a different perspective on concerns, so I'll talk to you based on the industry that I came from. I shared this in private, so I'll take it to the public as well. When I think about a contract, the contract period is normally put in place so that we can get a run of data based on our relationship with the organization. One of the things I admire most about the city of Avondale, and also I shared this with City Manager Corbin, something that changed about us since City Manager Corbin has come to the city of Avondale is our credit rating has increased. So when we went out for a bond, we got higher credit rating. Outside of City Manager Corbin, I also joined the city, and our credit rating increased. Those are the only two major changes that happened. But when I think about it in terms of credit rating increasing contracts that we enter into, it really shows a matter of good faith. So ending a contract before the terms of the contract are over is kind of like closing a credit card on your credit file. You might not be swiping that card every day. It might have a zero balance, but you're showing that you're not willing to keep it open. So regardless if you have good credit or not, when you end that contract, an unused credit card contract, your credit rating still goes down. I'm sure many of you who've done this have experienced that. So I'm concerned, one, that our credit rating has increased. We've gone out for a bond, specifically indicating we're bonding for public safety. And now we're going to say, hey, we're going to renege on this one contract. That doesn't feel good for me. If you can go back to the expense slide, there were quite a few HR expenses that we had in there. So I'd like to look at those a little bit more, please. That's it. So with the expenses, it's about $500,000. And let's say that we made about $750,000. We'd say we got $250,000 profit here. So simple math, if you just want to round the numbers, $250,000 profit, canceling that contract, we're still coming out on top. However, it's just kind of how do we look? And when you go back and take a look at the slides, there was one, I think, Councilmember Weiss referred to the Dysart behavior pattern. Can we take a look at that slide? I just want to make sure. So the lower information is we started off with 60,500, let's say, pre-deployment vehicles that we captured. We went up an additional 6,000 vehicles. But we changed that behavior post-deployment for the first set. So it went down to 59,000. So maybe the word got out on the street that, hey, they're tracking speed over here. So maybe we just, we were clear, don't come down here. And if you're going to speed, we got more drivers once those cameras went away. And so those numbers, of course, went back up. But the thing I think that's most impactful is we did change behaviors. And so now more people are driving on that throughway, and it's still less than the top number. So we still decreased the amount of people speeding. So we met our ambition. And I would hate for us to make a foolhardy decision when we're asking the public to vote on a bond for public safety to cancel a contract, because now we're going to make our credit look bad, like we can't keep a contract. So there's a couple more slides I wanted to speak to. If we can go forward, I think one or two more slides here, please. I really am very excited about the tracks. I feel like what Chief Espinoza was able to share with me is these are like cigarette adapters, and we have take-home vehicles now, so we'll be able to deploy more of those because we're going to get bond funding. But I think we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, because we've already applied for grant money from Safe Streets for All grants. I know that we have a great partner at National League of Cities, Brittany Kohler. Secretary Sean Duffy hasn't pulled any of our transit dollars here. Those grant fundings come through Secretary Duffy. So I want to make sure that if we're getting federal funding to do things in Avondale, and we're getting bond funding to do things in Avondale, that we do as many things in Avondale as we can to keep it safe. So to save $107,000, I know you guys put safety first. I know we're going to do more things, but to whom much is given, much is required. So I think we need to be able to walk and chew gum at this. And so this is not something that I would be able to support, but I respect that this is something that you all would like to look at alternatives for. And I want us to be mindful, because we've gotten grant funding to keep things safe. And we don't want people to second guess us when we maybe put a part of this in that research grant. Like, we're already doing this to research how things look. So we have to be mindful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Garcia.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I was against them to begin with, and I'm really glad that now we're able to terminate the contract, and that we have our officers that will be able to do the job, and you guys have a plan to set that forward. So I appreciate you guys presenting that to us, and I look forward to seeing you guys out there pulling everybody over but me.
So you've heard obviously some different viewpoints here. Simply for myself, with speaking with the community, and I've already shared my examples the first time this came up, was how can I demonstrate to the community that we're taking speeding seriously, and the idea of having the speed cameras, while many residents, when I was going door to door, shared with me how much they disliked the idea, I was able to essentially share with them the reason why I voted and approved when we went through with the contract for the speed cameras. And it really stems from safety. How do we make a dent in the overall safety of our roads? And these two speed cameras, as you can tell by some of the numbers that were listed, even if you look at revenue, were successful. However, I'm also looking at overall impact. And to speak into that point, from what I've heard tonight in regards to the presentation, is that, and aside from two cameras, which are capturing two data points, two streets at a time, that there is some effect, whether it's the increments are large or small. We can talk about that in a different conversation. Nonetheless, based upon what was shared tonight through the presentation in regards to expanded coverage, as well as more members of the motorbike team, the different tools that can be applied in regards to the LiDAR and the radar, to me, satisfies what my commitment to the residents was in regards to safety. And that is, if I can utilize tools, software to make two roadways safe, then how can I get in the way of making even more roadways safe here tonight based upon what you've shared? And so out of respect to the presentation and the motion that was recommended and provided here, I see no problem with removing the speed cameras and allowing the police department, under your supervision, Chief Espinoza, to provide and add these additional resources, including the campaigns, as a means to reducing and hopefully eliminating speed as a factor here in this community. And so with that, I see that. Sorry, Councilmember Condi. I'm so sorry, Councilmember Condi.
It's okay. I agree with Mayor Pineda. I too, in the beginning, did vote for the cameras, and I think the whole thing we were talking about is how do we change behavior, and it looks like it might be changed temporarily. But then, yes, it did help a little bit. But the overall impact, I think only having the two cameras, and I know that at some areas, because of the way they were positioned, due to the sun, they weren't able to properly monitor those speeds at that point when there was a lot of sun. But I do think that this new speed safety strategies, I feel like this is a great way to let people know that we're serious, that we're doing a campaign, getting some additional officers out there. I think this would be more beneficial than the speed cameras that we're currently doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Condi. Councilmember White?
I think that, just to be clear, 5-1 are the statistics if we just want to make it. So for every 6 tickets, 5 of them for non-residents. So our residents weren't being the major people impacted. Only about 18% of the citations that went out were Avondale residents. So one, I want to thank our Avondale residents for not being bad actors. The majority of the people getting caught by these speed cameras were not our residents. So first and foremost, I want to thank our residents for doing that. They have safe behaviors. And so it to me definitely fulfilled the purpose, and I want to highlight that. So, and I do want to let you know, you can pull me over if I'm breaking the law. I will receive and take your feedback. Thank you.
I was kidding, just so it's on the record.
Okay. Did you have a comment? Okay, Councilmember Solorio.
I do appreciate the extra things that you've added, the above and beyond presentation. I really would like us to have more enforcement in the areas where they were at. I know we can say it, but we need to do it for our people. And I get that sometimes vacancies become open or not. I did look into the Safer Streets grant. That is a large portion of the Safer Streets grant to have countermeasures in there. So that may be something that we may lose, which is a grant. So, I mean, granted, certain things we know we run by our residents and such, but that is a big component, and I actually have a reference number for that. So if we're prepared to lose something like that for counteractive measures of safety, we also need to consider that part of it. I get that some people think it's a nuisance, and I think that we can do better in some areas like a campaign and such. But we also need to think of both sides of it. We're talking about not spending money for a bridge and, doing that, but yet we want to take $100,000 and do that. So, I mean, I can go out to our people and justify where we spend our money all day and every day, but that is one of the Safer Streets components that is written in there for the 2025 standards.
Councilmember White?
And again, I want to thank the current administration and Secretary Sean Duffy for being able to make the Safe Streets for All grants available for us to have here in the city of Avondale. And I want to acknowledge the current administration has not taken a dime of money from the city of Avondale. And from what I understand, not from any of the MAG people in the West Valley. I don't know what's going on everywhere, but I know that we're safe over here. So we want to show our appreciation by using the money we get grant funded. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, if no other comments, we got a motion from Councilmember Garcia, a second from Vice Mayor Nielsen. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Weiss. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see your hand there.
No, it's okay. Councilmember Solorio, thank you for bringing up the grant. I do have a question. Does our termination of this contract affect our grant?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, we don't believe so. We have a comprehensive safety plan that we just presented to council, so we believe that we'll be able to keep the grant. We're just getting started with it. The first year is planning, second phase is implementation of those kinds of things. So we believe that we'll be okay.
As a member of the National Transportation Infrastructure Services, I just want to clarify, we have a research grant. This is research data that we should be collecting through the contract period. So there's a contract period we're cutting short, and this is a part of the research that was used, just for clarification.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Councilmember White. Okay, no other questions. We got a motion from Councilmember Garcia, a second from Vice Mayor Nielsen. If you could all please vote.
Aye.
Okay, item passes 5-2. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council.
Thank you, Chief Espinoza, and thank you for all in your part of your team. Appreciate it.